So I would also, I'm sure everybody's already said this already, but I would also personally like to thank you, and on behalf of all the panelists, thank you for coming today. It's really an honor to have you all here, and I personally am super, super excited about having girls who code here. The more girls, the better in coding. I'm sure you've heard all those statistics, and I won't go over them again. But what we wanted to do today during the panel is we wanted to, first of all, you can see here, and we'll have everybody introduce themselves in just a moment. We really want to share stories with you. This is all about sharing stories. We want to hear from you what stories you want to hear. So I've got some questions prepared, but I would rather answer the questions that you have than the questions that we had come up with, kind of invented ahead of time. So we'd like this to be very, very interactive. We don't want to make this a one-way outbound discussion. So please, anytime, just raise your hand, jump in, ask questions. You don't have to wait until every panelist has answered a question. If there's something that you hear, go ahead and raise your hand, ask a question, and we'll make it very conversational. So before we jump in, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Cornelia Davis. I work here part-time in the San Francisco office. I am a little further south, a little closer to LA. So when I'm here, I am traveling, and we'll talk a little bit about travel during the panel. I work on a product called Cloud Foundry. And in my role, I am a propeller head. I write code, I'm an engineer, but I tend to be out in the field a lot, which is why I'm only in San Francisco part-time. I work a lot with customers, so I'm constantly going to customer sites, to partner sites. I get to speak at a lot of conferences, so I get to do that as well. But I do cut code. I've been doing this for about 25 years. And have a degree in computer science and all of that stuff, and you'll hear from the rest of the panelists as well. So I'm really here just to moderate and facilitate and make sure that I'm going to be looking for the hands that raise, and I might ask some follow-on questions and keep the conversation going. But really this is about hearing from your panelists. So the first thing we're going to do is just go down the line, and I'd love for everybody to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, kind of what your background is, and what you do on a daily basis. I think everybody is probably really interested. I heard a little bit of that at the end of the session. What does your day look like? What do you spend your days doing?
So I'm Rachel. I'm a software engineer at Pivotal Labs. I spend most of my day doing pair programming, just like you guys were just doing, and I'll pair program with Pivotal engineers and also with client engineers to teach them about best practices for coding.
Hey y'all, I'm Pam. I'm a designer, a product designer at Labs. What the hell does that mean? These days we are focused very much on not just building a thing or a beautiful thing, but building the right thing. And some days that means doing some research and discovery, some days it means sketching, some days it means pairing with the developer to get the style guide right. Rachel and I worked on a project last year where we had a live style guide, and it was amazing.
I'm Elisabeth. I work with Cornelia on Cloud Foundry. I'm the Director of Quality Engineering, and in that role I get to work with all of our 17 teams that make up the overall Cloud Foundry team, helping them to make sure that they've got the right practices in place so that we're building the thing right and building the right thing.
I'm Tira. I'm another software engineer like Rachel. So I work with clients and with other Pivotal developers who we call pivots. So if you hear us say a pivot, that's what we mean. It's one of us. Yeah, so right now I'm on a project working for CoreLogic and developing some software for banks, and it's kind of cool.
I'm Sarah. You guys just heard from me, but I guess I'll still fill it in. Background is in biomedical informatics, which was a mix between biology and machine learning, so computer science. And I guess I've been doing that for the last 10 years, although I've been working here for 2 years. And my day-to-day is, I guess, a bit of what you saw with the modeling, a lot of client interaction, quite a bit of travel to client sites, and also speaking at conferences.
Since we only have one mic, maybe I'll just do a little bit of traveling back and forth. So the first question I thought we would start with is really how each one of you came to be in the field that you're at. Do you have any story that you'd like to tell? Did somebody bring home a computer and introduce you that way? Or is this something that you were exposed to in high school? Or did you go off to college expecting to do something different and falling in love with something else? So I'd love to hear from each of you on what your kind of backdrop story is. And I'm going to start right in the middle rather than having Rachel start first every single time. So we'll go to Elisabeth first.
So when I was in 8th grade, and that was 1980, so I understand that that was before any of you were born. But when I was in 8th grade, my father brought home this big machine in this gigantic box, and it was called a TRS-80. That was Tandy Radio Shack computer model number 80. It was a model number 1. It had a whopping 4K, not 4 megabytes, 4K of memory. And that was all you had to work with. It didn't have a hard drive. It didn't have a floppy drive. If you wanted to store your program, you stored it off to a cassette tape. You might not even know what that looks like. I'm cool with that. So anyway, my dad brought home this machine, and he said, computers are our future. And I said, what? And he said, computers are our future. You should play with this thing. And I said, I have other things to do. And he said, no, look at what this thing can do. And he started showing me, and I got intrigued because I could make it do things. And I always loved things that I could make things happen with. And I could make things happen with this computer really, really fast. So I fell in love with computers because my dad made me play with them. And oh my, has the industry changed a lot since then.
So my path wasn't straightforward at all. I still don't know what my path is, and I think that's partly what I love about this industry. What it is today is in 2 years it's going to change. I'm going to have to retrain, take some classes, and that's partly what I love about it. I started out as an artist who decided last minute, the day before applications were due, not to go to an art college, but to go to a very technical college, Cal Poly. Not because I ever coded anything before, but because of their philosophy of learn by doing. We learn by breaking things and making them over again. And I think slowly I learned some technology because I just wanted to make my projects really cool and exciting. I had this idea. One of my very first projects was a concept for rating your landlord called polyliving. You know, there's ratemyprofessor.com. Well, we wanted to make a thing for rating your landlord. It was a small town, a college town. We thought it was really useful. So we started playing around with the Google API. We thought that was an easy way to get the map in, put some properties down. And by the end, I had learned, most importantly, how to Google problems, find APIs, and string them together to make really interesting concepts, and I still do some of that today.
Cool. So I took a programming class my freshman year of high school and then didn't really program again until I got to college. And by senior year of high school, I liked science and math, so I decided I was going to go to an engineering school, although I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. And then I went to a school called Olin College, which has a philosophy of hands-on, like Cal Poly. It has a philosophy of hands-on building, learning by doing. And the freshman semester, first semester courses included mechanical engineering courses, electrical engineering courses, and programming courses. I found mechanical engineering frustrating, electrical engineering was frustrating, but programming was a lot of fun, and I could use programming to solve my calculus homework also. And that was how I got into programming and ended up doing computer science for the rest of college.
So my dad's a software developer, and so I always thought like software development was really cool, because he would like come home and write these programs, and I'd be like, oh wow, can you teach me how to do that? And he never did. So when I was in high school, I was really into like animation, and so I would like go into the computer lab during lunch, and I would like start doing some animation in Flash, because I had that on the computers there, and then I was like, oh well, you know, I could animate this with a little bit of code, and then I could make this like a little bit of a game, and so that was sort of what got me into programming in the first place. And then when I was going to college, I still was like, well, I still want to do art. So I actually started off with an art sort of major, and then just got more and more excited by the programming classes that I was taking as like a minor, and ended up with that as like a dual major, and then ended up with that as a career. And so that's sort of it.
I guess my path also was not very straightforward. When I was a kid, I didn't love computers. I used them to play games, basically. And then when I got to high school, I was on a tennis team, and I hate getting up early in the morning. And I had to take a computer class, and I wanted to take typing that was only available at 7 a.m., and that wasn't happening. So the only thing I could do was a computer science class, and I ended up doing well at it, well enough to the next year I could take a practical arts requirement, which was AP Computer Science. But when I went to college, I was still going to be a medical doctor, so I went to UC San Diego for biology. And my freshman year, they started a program called bioinformatics, which was a combination of biology and computer science, and I thought, oh, that's kind of perfect. That's what I like. And that's it. So then I started doing it more.
Did I hear you say typing class?
That is what most people do when they have to take a computer class.
They take typing. Did you? See, I took a typing class, but I'm Elizabeth's age, and I figured by now typing classes would be gone. Has anybody taken a typing class in high school? Well, okay. Interesting. So there's still typing classes. All right. Yeah, okay. I figured everybody just learned to type on just because computers are so pervasive. So, yeah, so interesting. So I wonder whether any of you have a story that you want to share, a moment in time where you said, this is what I want to do. I want to be a girl who codes, or I want to go into data science. Maybe you didn't know it named data science. Does anybody have a story that you want to share with the group? How many of you know what you want to major in college? Okay, so not less than half of you. Of those people, how many want to do computer science? Okay. What about electrical engineering? Interesting. Mechanical engineering? Maybe? You have a question? Yes.
What exactly does electrical engineering entail? What does that mean?
Okay, great question. So what does electrical engineering take? What does that mean? Rachel, can I ask you, since you've taken those classes?
So I think there's a lot. Mainly it involves building chips and circuits. So for example, as an electrical engineer, you might build a chip that can run some sort of program. I only took the freshman year courses, so generally it involves building chips and circuits. I don't know if anyone else has a better answer.
That's a good answer.
Okay.
So I'll chime in as well a little bit with my background. So I started my career in aerospace. I did a degree in computer science, but I started my career in aerospace in an image processing area. So what we were doing was we were looking at infrared images, or it might be radar or something like that, and we were trying to detect things in those images. We were trying to detect edges, maybe runways or bridges, those types of things. So there is an awful lot of electrical engineering knowledge that's required in understanding how that sensor data comes in, so understanding what the impulses are and so on. And so there were a lot of electrical engineers that weren't building circuits per se, but were using all of the things that they knew about the way that infrared worked, infrared being heat pictures, or the way that radar worked. So speaking of languages, what languages have you been coding in so far? JavaScript and Python? Scratch. Okay, interesting. That was this week, during the Girls Who Code this summer? Okay, anything else? Cool. All right. Any questions so far that you're burning to ask? Yes?
So this is for all of you. As ambitious women, have you ever encountered any obstacles that you wouldn't have encountered if you were not a woman?
Okay, that's a great question. I'll repeat the question to make sure everybody can hear it. As an ambitious woman in a science and technology field, have you ever hit any obstacles that you think you might not have hit? Hit obstacles that you might not have hit had you been a man? And I will start with Tira.
I think one of the tough things about like when you encounter something where you're like, well, I don't really know if this is sexism or not, right? Sorry. I think a lot of what you encounter tends to be, it's very sort of like low-key. It's not like someone's coming up to you and saying, well, we're not going to give you this promotion because you're female, right? Like, that's not going to happen. But, you might feel that, like, well, I see my male peers, getting these sort of promotions or getting, like, one experience that I had was, like, when I was working up in Seattle at another company, we had a series of desks that I was like the first desk when you had to come into the team area. And whenever someone would come to our team to ask a question for the team, they would bypass me and ask one of the other, like all the other people on my team were guys, and it was like, I mean, maybe it's not because I'm female, but that was probably the most sort of like poignant experience where I was like, I'm pretty sure this is because I'm female. But I think a lot of experience I've had have been a lot more positive than that. Here has been a lot more positive of an experience, and I've definitely seen, women doing, the same kinds of like leadership roles here, and just kind of like getting the same sort of career advancement. Sorry.
So I feel, building on what Tira said, a lot of things that you encounter are more incidents than they are obstacles. And it's about like what you make of them. So for example, one time I went with another engineer to the Stanford Career Fair to represent Pivotal Labs and to tell college students about our internship program. So I was an intern at the time. I told another student there who was my age, I was like, yes, you should apply for an internship in the fall because they fill up really quickly. That's when I applied for mine, was October. And so he turns to me and he's like, oh, okay, so you're an HR intern then? And HR is human resources. And I was kind of like, no, I'm an engineer. And I mean, it could have been an obstacle, right? I could have been like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing engineering. People don't think I am. But it was kind of just became like a funny story and not something that stopped me at all from doing engineering.
I think the answer is it's so hard to tell. If you look at it statistically, we do have obstacles if you look at it as a group, but individually, like, we're people and there's so much bias already. It's really hard to tell whether you're heard or your ideas out there. I think the thing to do is to find your allies wherever they may be and have support, because whether there's so many ways that people can be stereotyped, whether you're female, whether you're young, there's so many different ways that we can have a bias. Just trying to be the best that you can be and find supporters. They're out there.
So to echo that, it is really subtle, it's really hard to tell. However, because there is so much attention in our industry right now on the fact that the ratios are insanely skewed, and frankly, the level of enrollment for women in technical programs has gone down so much, there's a lot of scrutiny on why, like how could this possibly be? And there's so much attention on that within the last few years, I've gotten opportunities because I'm a woman. And I've accepted them, even though I kind of felt a little bit like, well, wait a minute, I wouldn't have gotten this opportunity if it weren't for my gender. I still accepted the speaking opportunities that I got specifically because I was a woman. So I think that there is a flip side to this as well, and I think that it's really healthy and great that we're getting so much attention on this. And there are so many activist women in technology out there making sure that our voices continue to be heard. So I think this was a great question, and I think it's something that you as a future leader in this field can help make sure that we continue going in the right direction.
Oh, sorry. Oh no, it's not a problem. So I want to echo everything. I've had the experience of being a TA in a class, and I have to say most of the more obvious things that have happened were actually in school, where I was a TA and they would ask me when the TA was coming in. They were waiting for the man to show up, and it's like, okay, well, when they come, you can deal with them. In the business world, I've definitely had the experience of being assumed that I'm something other than what I am, like, can you turn down the AC in this room, or I've had moments like that. But I think in general, there are more advocates for women, because as soon as they see you as experienced and competent, it's almost better, because now you represent the person in the room who's going to connect to the other woman in the room. And it's clear that you'll be good at what you're doing, and you'll be respected for what you do and your capabilities. So the last thing I just want to add is that when I started grad school, there's this concept of imposter syndrome, where you come in and you think that you've gotten here by luck, or you're not as good as everyone else. And especially in the case of men, who tend to be very, I don't want to generalize either in the other direction, but they when they're around each other, sometimes they can be a little bit more rah-rah about what they do, and you might be a little bit more reserved about what you're capable of doing. Just don't let the self-doubt drive any of your decisions. Just focus on what you can do and how well you're doing, and everything else will work out fine from there.
So I just wanted to add to that I have heard that women will not apply for a job on average unless they read the entire job description and say, oh, I can do that and that, and unless they can do everything that's in the list, whereas on average a man would look at that list and go, yeah, I can do half of that list, and they would apply. And so this speaks directly to the imposter syndrome thing. Don't psych yourself out like that. Don't think that you have to sky the bar on anything that you're going to attempt before you're willing to attempt it.
Yep, so I agree with you that I generally find that men are better at self-promotion than women are. So speaking of gender then, one of the things that I'm curious to hear, and you can see that we have a broad range of ages, we'll say here. I'm interested in the balance that you saw, and it's not only based on time. And the reason that I bring up ages is because I was also in college in the 1980s, as was Elisabeth, and so I'm interested in hearing, and Elisabeth mentioned the fact that the percentages of women in computing, in computing and in science fields in colleges has been decreasing. So I'm interested to hear from the panelists, if you would share with the group kind of what the gender balance was like, maybe both in high school and in your college classes, and give us a little bit of context around that, and maybe a little bit of a kind of personal feeling on how that affected you, if it did in any way. And maybe we'll start with you, Pam. I don't think we've started with you yet.
Sure. So that proportion changed for me wildly, because I decided to not stick with one major and do a variety of things. I took human-computer interaction from the School of Computer Science, and I took interactive design from the School of Art. And one thing, by the way, about majors, they're somewhat arbitrary, especially at a public school. It's got a lot to do with legacy and how the administration draws up their majors, but it does affect things like being able to relate and being able to aspire to someone you see in another major. For the art school, it was wildly biased towards women. For the School of Computer Science, even in some of the fuzzier elective courses, I was often the only one. And I was also in every picture for the catalog of the School of Computer Science, because I was the only one. I was staged in different places in the room to try to change that bias and try to see, yes, there are people I can relate to for whatever reason. So it varies. It's also interesting to see how we try to skew that when we have things like Welcome Week, and when we try to select a good representative that doesn't necessarily match the ratio. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
I went to a very technical school. I went to Caltech, and at the time, this was the 1980s, but there was one woman for every 7 men. It was a weird place to be a woman, because anytime a ratio is skewed that much, it starts to feel pretty weird. But that was in stark contrast to my high school, where I went to a liberal arts high school, and there were more women than men. So, is that?
Yeah, my school was an engineering school, and there was about, I think, 2/3 men, and then the computer science classes were something more like 5/6 men or something. And then, like, I definitely had classes where it was like there were like 60 people in the class and about 2 girls. But I didn't really experience it that much, like in the classes at all. Like, I mean, I didn't feel like there was that much difference in terms of like how I would have experienced if there had been more girls. Had a lot of friends who were guys. I think that was the main effect. Like, you know, I think.
And what about, I'll have you add as you, and you can certainly pass the mic back to people who have already talked about it. What about in the workplace? What have you seen in your career so far? You have all gotten a perspective of what it looks like here in the office, maybe as you've walked around and seen that there's actually quite a few women here at Pivotal. What about workplaces?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I've worked at a few different places, and this is definitely like when I stepped in here, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many women here. I haven't seen this many women around since high school. This is weird. I was like, how do I talk to girls? I don't know. But you know, I mean, people are people. So I think as long as you're around good people, you know, it can be okay.
And have you had other experiences at other companies where it's been a bit different?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the company I worked up at in Seattle, and it was like definitely I was the only girl on my floor, like the only girl in my department actually when I started, and that was pretty different. So that was probably like 100 to 1 ratio.
School was the same as what everyone describes. When I started grad school, my lab was 16 guys, and I was the first girl to be in it. And then after that, there were 4 women that joined. So this concept of having one woman kind of break into the boys' club works very well. I also no show of the fact that I am a woman. I wear heels. I do whatever I want. So I don't know. I think it's important for you guys not to try and assimilate in any way. Just be yourselves, too.
So I actually had a different experience, I think, than everyone else because I went to a really small engineering school. There was like 350 students, and of those, about 175 of them were women. So we had a 50-50 gender ratio. And so I don't know what it would have been like for me to go to a school where that wasn't the case. But it ended up being really awesome because all of my closest friends from college were women, and they're also all engineers. And I think that was like a great basis for friendship, is that like we all had similar interests. And I do have plenty of friends from college that were guys, but it was also just like really great to have a support system that had more of my shared experiences. Yeah.
Question. What school did you go to?
It's called Olin College.
Good question. Another question.
What has been your experience like with the disparity of minorities in the engineering fields? Like, do you think there women are like a higher number, or?
I think from what the question was, what has been my experience as a woman with minorities in engineering? Is that a good way of phrasing it? Okay.
You're touching upon things other than gender.
Yeah.
Yes. So other than gender, so other underrepresented individuals or groups of individuals.
I'm not sure that I'm qualified to speak on that at all.
Is there anybody that has a comment on that?
I guess I do want to comment on the fact that there's more outreach certainly for women at the moment because minorities are also extremely underrepresented, and I think there was evidence of that in my grad school. I mean, there's evidence of that, I guess, in this panel, in essence. But I think the reason why it's important to also kind of focus on women temporarily right now is I think people in general, when they're in the context of where they're at, they tend to associate with the thing that's most removed and most absent. So when I'm here, for me, it's that I'm a woman and I'm not around a lot of other women in general. At work now I am, luckily. But still going back, and even in that moment, to to thinking about that it's about you as a person and what you bring to the table, and trying as much as possible not to remove or change anything about who you are or try to fit in any way. Just remember that you're here for what you bring to the table and not at all for all these other things that are easy to assess and differentiate yourself and make yourself feel like you don't fit in any way.
I have a story about that. Cal Poly, again, very technical school. Not only women are wildly underrepresented, minorities are extremely underrepresented as well. And there's no real answer to why, but something that they are trying to do is they have a program called Polycultural, where they take minority students and they invite recent or about to be high school grads who are thinking about accepting to Cal Poly, and just show them around. And again, it's about finding a support system and finding some relatability on whatever level that happens to be. And it's hard. And I think we're trying to do those programs a little bit more, but we're not doing enough of them. I was actually part of Polycultural, even though I don't belong, but it's just about reaching out and connecting.
Super. Other questions? Yes?
What do you like most about your jobs?
Ah, that is a fabulous question. Who wants that one first? The question was, what do you like most about your jobs?
I think number one thing is I like working with people. Number two thing is I'm just passionate about, in general, the work that I get to do. And I think the third thing is the travel. I do like to travel a lot, and I travel a lot. I just got back from Boston this morning, so I've been to multiple countries, to multiple cities.
What was the coolest place that you've been to?
I got to go to Belgium for the first time, so that was new for me. I've never been there before. But this year I've been to Toronto, London, I went to Antwerp in Belgium, Boston, Philadelphia, New York. Last summer I actually got to spend 4 weeks living in Manhattan, which was fun. I've never done that before for a customer. Seattle, DC, yeah, those things are really fun. And of course, getting to meet a lot of people.
Oh, let's see. Obviously, the breakfast in the morning's great.
Wait, they weren't here for breakfast.
Oh yeah, but you guys weren't here for breakfast. Oh, see, they give us breakfast every morning. It's nice. No, but that's not my favorite part of this job, actually. It's like, I mean, I love coding. Like, I love writing code. I think, anywhere you're a developer, you get to do that. I think the thing that makes this stand out is the pair programming for me, and test driving. Because here we get to write really good code, and that feels really, really good. And you get to not sit alone all day. You work with someone all day. So, it's really fun. I don't know. That's probably my favorite part.
So my favorite thing isn't really a thing so much as the characteristic of my whole job. I get to spend my entire day working with incredibly smart, incredibly competent, really nice people solving really hard problems that are intellectually challenging and engage my entire brain. And solving those problems is changing the world. So that's why I love my job.
The breakfast is great. It's one of the perks of having a coveted job, and it is at the moment a very hot industry, and it is coveted. So not among other more, fuzzy reasons, it is a very solid reason why I like my job. On another note, I like it because it changes all the time. What we're working on today, we're doing a lot of mobile apps, probably is going to change tomorrow, and there's going to be all kinds of new constraints and APIs and backends and front ends to work with. So it's going to be different. I don't have to commit to one thing.
So for me, I really enjoy the day-to-day work of coding and working with people, but one of the things I really enjoy specifically about Pivotal is that as a consulting company, you're not working on one product for years at a time. You get to switch every few months, and at Pivotal you have a lot of control over when you switch. So you can tell your manager, I want to stay on this project from beginning to end, or you can tell your manager, hey, I really enjoy switching every 2 months. Also, I enjoy going back and forth between web apps and mobile apps. And your manager will do the best to accommodate the things that you want to work on, which I think is pretty cool and pretty unusual.
Yep. And I'll personally add one thing that hasn't been mentioned, but I do want to emphasize this whole notion of change. I refer to myself as a change junkie. I would get bored, terribly bored, if I was doing the same thing now that I was doing even a year ago. And and Elisabeth and I work on a product, and so I'm planning on being on this product for a very, very long time. But even when I'm working on a product for years at a time, it changes constantly. So there's never a day where it's, oh, I'm doing this same boring thing over and over again. And that is just the nature of being in any kind of a science and technology field, is it's constantly going to be changing. I can speak personally to the computer science side of things. I mean, the way that things, you heard Elisabeth talk about the computer that she started programming on, which was the very first computer that I programmed on as well, 4K of memory. And then a number of years later, I splurged and I bought this really cool, I bought a Next computer. If you know what Next was, you guys weren't alive when they came out, but it was Steve Jobs' project before he went back to Macintosh. And that computer, I dropped a whole lot of cash on it. It was this cool computer. Well, my phone has like way more computing power than that thing does. Everything's different. So change happens all the time. So I really wanted to emphasize that, and I really appreciated that from the panel. The other thing that I'll tell you personally that's one of the most fun things about my job is I get to speak. Now, not everybody likes to speak, but I love, love, love going to conferences and sharing what we're doing on our projects. And that is something that you will have the opportunity to do. You're not, if this is something that really gets you, and not everybody likes to do public speaking, and they don't have to, but if that's something that you like to do, if you like to go out there and share and you like to teach, I love to teach, then that's something that you can do as a computer scientist as well, or as in any science and technology field. So I wanted to add that one as well. What about other questions? Yes?
I have a similar question.
What's the most rewarding part of your job? That is a great question as well.
Great. For me, the most rewarding part as a consultant is that I get to teach the engineers that I'm working with about how to write really good software. And I get to know that even after they've stopped working with Pivotal, they've learned something from working with me, and they're going to continue writing really good software. In fact, a client that I worked with 2 years ago, I still follow them on Twitter, and I've seen their website, and it's gotten way awesomer since I worked on it. So it's really satisfying for me to give our clients the foundation to be able to grow themselves and not actually rely on us beyond our engagement.
What Elisabeth said, make products that change the world. We'd like to think so. One of the greatest things about software is that you can see impact really fast. One of my favorite parts is going out and discovering pains of users and throwing something in front of them that they can get really excited about and think about how they can make them spend less time on a call at the call center by just automating everything or solving little pains until we fix the world.
Sweet.
And not overly ambitious at all.
So I think what I find the most rewarding, so at Pivotal we practice Agile software development. You've gotten a taste of that with some of the paired programming you've done. That's one of our practices. And on Cloud Foundry, we are scaling up the Pivotal Labs Agile process so that it works for a very, very, very large team where there's no way that everybody could possibly pair with everybody else on the team. We're figuring out how to scale it up and still retain the values that we have at Pivotal. And when we find ways to do that, those are incredibly rewarding days.
So I mean, building cool software is fun, where you like, you see the results of your work, right? That's always fun. But I think the most exciting moment I've had, like here, was there's this guy I was working with, and he was like a young guy. Like I think he was probably his first year in the industry, and we'd been writing tests. He'd been here maybe like 2 months at this point, and one day a test failed. Like we wrote some code, and then a test failed that we had written months ago, and he was like, "Wow, like writing tests is really useful." I was like, yes, finally, because I think like having that moment of like seeing the client actually like realize like the usefulness of what you're doing and actually see the value in doing it. It's pretty exciting.
My job's a little bit different from everyone else's, but for me, it's like every time we create a model, at the end of the project with the client, you can show exactly how well you did. So, did I do a good job of predicting how long a patient will stay in the hospital? Do I do a good job of, identifying if this vaccine will be good at the end, and what sort of insights can I bring out of it? So it's like very specific. It's always very satisfying. You're solving a puzzle. You get to be creative about how you do it. But at the end, there's like an answer, and you can just feel good about it.
Very good. Other questions? Yes.
So you guys work with what kind of companies do you work with?
Okay, good question. So the question is, we work with companies. So you've heard some of the folks who are Pivotal Labs developers. They're working with clients. Clients come in here into the office, so you're asking about the nature of those clients. And so maybe we can talk about some of the names that you recognize. Same thing with Elisabeth and I working on Cloud Foundry. We're selling that product to a lot of companies, so maybe we can share some of the names of those companies. And same thing with the data labs. So who wants to take this one first?
Why don't you take it with names of companies that use Cloud Foundry?
Okay. So I spend a lot of time out in the field talking to customers, and in fact, I have a customer briefing this afternoon. They're interested, it's the company's MasterCard. So MasterCard, we're going to be talking to them. Other companies that I've worked with are companies like Bank of America, Bank of New York. A few weeks ago was out and I spent a couple of days with Staples. So how many of you think of Staples as a technology company, right? But they are. They're very much a technology company, and Staples wants to compete with Amazon. So they don't just want to sell office products online, they want to be able to sell other things. And if you go to their website, you'll find things like they're starting to sell watches and all of those types of things. So these are very kind of brand name companies, some of which you might be surprised because you don't think of them as software houses. I haven't told you, but Cloud Foundry is a product that helps people write and deliver software themselves. So they use our product to build software and bring it to market. So pretty much any company out there is starting to do software, and so we are working with very, very large brand name customers.
You're mentioning all these like large brand name customers, but another thing that like Pivotal Labs has actually become very well known for is working with really small startups. So there are a lot of companies that you may never have heard of. One of the companies I worked with was, I don't actually know how small of a startup they are now, but like Sunrun, they actually have a bunch of billboards up around now. It's like a solar panel company, or they do home solar like evaluations. So their software takes like a Google Earth snapshot of your roof, and then someone lays down like, okay, this is where the roof is, these are the trees, and then it does a calculation, figures out where the best place is to put your solar panels, and then comes up with an estimate. And so, I don't know, that was pretty cool. Company I'm working for now it's like software for evaluating mortgages. Doesn't sound quite as exciting, still fun to work on.
And one other company Pivotal worked with back in 2007 before it became huge was Twitter. And Pivotal actually helped to build the first version of Twitter. They've completely rewritten it now. But back when they were a startup, we were helping them, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess some of the startups that made it after Pivotal are interesting. Twilio was here, and Square was here at some point in the past. Urban Dictionary, that's cool. Again, it started by a pivot, Urban Dictionary?
I'm not sure.
But they were here at some point. Some of the, like, not every company is a software company now. I worked with a restaurant group in Chicago to develop their loyalty program on mobile. What are some other fun ones?
Pam and I also worked with like a health insurance company that wanted to build an iPhone app for people who use their health insurance. So they're also not a software company, but they needed software.
I'll mention a couple that I haven't worked on personally, but I've heard from people. So in the media and entertainment space, so Major League Baseball, for example, NBC, Sundance. There's a project going on. I think it's out of the LA office. So Sundance is a client of Pivotal Labs. 49ers. There you go. That's right. They did a bunch of stuff for, I think, even apps that were running when you're in the stadium and things like that.
I don't know how many you mentioned by name, but car companies, hospitals, insurance companies. We've had some clothing manufacturers, like retailers. Yeah, entertainment. I think like everything. It's like, just think of companies in some space, and I don't know, there's like this famous quote, software is eating the world, so everyone's turning into a software company because everyone has data. So.
Any other questions? Yes.
So how did you guys get started at Pivotal?
The question was, how did you get started at Pivotal? So how did you come to be at Pivotal? Anybody want to take that?
So a long, long time ago, in 2004, I met this guy named Rob Mee. He's the guy who founded Pivotal. We were at a conference together, and we got to talking because he had this really cool process by which he built software, and I was really curious about his process. And the more we talked, the more we decided we had to work together. And so I managed to wangle my way onto one of Rob's projects. And this was back before Pivotal had offices. So there was no Pivotal Labs office. We were sharing office space in some other companies. And we did our first project together, and it went so well that I would come back periodically. I was running my own company at the time. I ran my own company for about 10 years. My job was get on airplanes and go help other people build software better. And it never made sense, really, for either one of us for me to come full-time to Pivotal, but I would come back every couple of years to remember what it was supposed to feel like to build software, because I would go to these other places and it would feel terrible to build software, and everybody was always depressed and angry. And then I'd come back here and be like, oh, yeah, it's supposed to be joyful. And so when Cloud Foundry was starting up and I coincidentally reached out to Rob again and told him that I was looking for what was next, he said we should talk, and that's how I ended up being here. So I came home to the mothership.
I know, Rachel, you have a story.
Yeah, so when I was a junior in college, Pivotal came to my school to the career fair to get people to be interns for the summer. And I knew a few other people who worked or had worked here and had enjoyed it. So I applied for an internship, which you guys should all do. If you major in computer science, you should intern here. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it so much that they offered me a full-time job for after graduation, and I took it, and now I am back here. So yeah.
My story is not that exciting, but I thought I'd share it anyway. So I was working up in Seattle, and I wasn't really liking my job, and so I put my resume up on LinkedIn, and I actually had looked at Pivotal and had been like, oh, I really, really want to work there, and had been kind of too scared to apply. And then someone from HR here reached out to me, and I was like, yes, absolutely. So I came down and interviewed, and yeah, they hired me, so it was great.
All right, and so I'm actually going to play off of something you said there. So you said you were in a job that you really didn't like. The one thing that I will tell all of you is that if you're in a technology field in computing or a similar technology field, if you don't like your job, no problem, you will find another one. There is huge demand, and so you will be able to find something you like. It's a great field to be in. So I think we want to wrap things up. What I'd like to do is I'd just like to pass the mic down the line and give each one of our panelists an opportunity to spend half a minute or a minute to kind of give you any parting words of wisdom, and we'll close on that. You want to start, Rachel? No? Who wants to start? Tara?
I just advise you guys to remember to go outside once in a while. Coding is really fun, but the outside world is nice too. So.
Who's next?
I just want to thank all of you guys for being here. I'm super excited to see all of you here, and I look forward to working with you at some point in the future.
Don't worry about the title or what it says on your diploma. It doesn't matter. It's going to change, and especially in this industry, it's going to change a lot. So just pick something that you like for whatever reason. Work on it.
I'm just going to second what Pam said. Do something that you love, and if you love fashion, you can find a fashion technology job. If you love health, you can find a job that involves healthcare and technology. And so there's no reason that you have to do technology and exclude your other interests. There's a way to combine them. So, yeah.
Sure. I guess based on what they're saying, just don't follow rules or find a template and go after it. Just follow what you want. And just because you don't see yourself exactly there already, someone's there already for you to look toward, doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. So just go for whatever you feel like.
All right. I don't have anything else to add to that. That was really wonderful. So I will just add my personal thanks as well. Thanks for all of the great questions. It's really went beyond my expectations on the interactivity. So you guys are wonderful. Have a great rest of the trip and the rest of the time. Annika, you want to say a few things?
Thank you. Awesome. Give it a round of applause to the panel. And echoing again, Cornelia, thanks you guys for some really great questions. So that about wraps it up. I guess I wanted to follow along with a little bit of my own advice, right? And that is just because of the numbers. Right now, all the women that you see on this stage are pioneers in and of themselves, even still to this day, right? So as you guys enter into college and you start pursuing your own interests, you also are going to be still be pioneers. So really in that spirit, make sure you're true to yourself. Find strength in your uniqueness. It's going to be that strength and uniqueness that people really value once you actually start getting into your careers. So don't shy away from that. Just seek it and go for it and exploit the heck out of it, okay? So, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen. We have some parting gifts for you guys, which are on this table over here. You'll see some lunch pails that say Pivotal on them. So as you're beginning to head out to your transpo, whatever that is, make sure you grab one of those. And that's our thanks to you guys for spending your day with us today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so one last comment. First of all, let's huge round of applause for Pivotal. Did you have fun? Yes? Okay, I like that. So if you haven't taken note of this, I want to point out one thing that happened here today. One of the cool things about being a woman in this industry is how we help each other and we become a network. So today, you have an incredible set of resources throughout who you've met today, both men and women. So as you think about what you want to do next, either in your schooling or in your career, you have a network you've established today. So you have access to all of us. We all have emails and Facebooks and LinkedIns, and you can find us. So the two great folks that brought you here today, we're going to make sure they know how to get in touch with us. If you need us for anything, if you have questions, follow up. If you want to intern, if you have a friend that wants to intern, if you have questions about your career in a few years, please know we're here to help you, and we would love to help you. So thanks for being here and being with us. Have a great summer. And we want to take a picture. So everyone come on up. Don't be shy. Right